This segment of the news is brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.
Welcome back. The complaints are many and the level of frustration from Bahamians high. So high, in fact, that the group Citizens Against Bank Exploitation this time took their grievances just outside the Central Bank of the Bahamas. Our Anna K. Archer was there. We hear more in this report.
Bank fees keep raising, but the economy is still in a dire situation. We're here with the protesters for Citizens Against Bank Exploitation, where they protested against Central Bank and walked down to Rawson Square with hopes that it brings more awareness about the bank fees.
Small in number, 5 fed-up Bahamians carried placards decrying increasing bank fees as they took their plight from the sidewalk outside the Central Bank to Rawson Square. And despite this, group organizer Dr. Denotra Archer Cartwright sitting and meeting with Central Bank Governor John Roll.
We thought Central Bank would be the best place because this is where they govern and regulate these banks. And so we haven't heard a lot from the Central Bank or the government in terms of what they're going to do in terms of policy of making changes. We just actually was in there with Mr. Roll, and he explained how the banks aren't making enough money. Well, adjustments have to be made on both sides. And so we're here today really to bring more awareness, to get Bahamian people involved, to know that there are people advocating for changes in the banking and the financial sector, and that we can have a better financial sector which is more inclusive of Bahamians, that has more competition and is more open to different types of banking institutions inside the Bahamas. We should have the options to be able to go outside of the normal framework of the commercial banks that we're seeing today.
And according to Dr. Archer Cartwright, here's what Mr. Roll disclosed to her.
They're using the bank fees as a way to make up for the money that they lost through the mortgages and the loans. Well, who gave the loans and who gave the mortgages? It was the banks. So when they gave those loans, they knew the risk. They gave them at very high interest rates, much higher than in other districts and other areas where these banks are operating. And so when the bubble popped, they made less money. But as we saw from the charts, when they adjusted for the loss, they actually almost are right back to where they balanced out at around about 2% overall and about 5% on there in terms of what they take back in returns. So is it that they're not making enough money, or is it that they're trying to make the amount of money they made when the economy was good? That's not possible.
Some banks have stipulated a $500 minimum in order to open a savings account, a pretty steep figure for some Bahamians. The group plans to continue to educate Bahamians about the banking industry with hopes that there would be better banking practices in the future.
For JCN News, I'm Annie K. Archer.
From the courts this evening, Grand Bahama Police have not only caught the men believed to be behind shop breaking and stealing on that island, but have helped in having them jailed. On remand at the Department of Corrections this evening are 24-year-old Jovan Opal Nixon of Holmes Rock and Cody Ramming of Jonestown. Now, Nixon was formally charged before Deputy Chief Magistrate Debbie Ferguson with 1 count each of stealing, shop breaking, and possession of an instrument for burglary. He pleaded guilty to those charges and was sentenced to 3 years. He also entered a guilty plea in the case of additional charges of stealing and shop breaking when he faced Magistrate Charlton Smith in court number 2. The accused, however, claimed his innocence in similar charges before Magistrate Renkin Johnson in court number 3. In this case, 32-year-old Ramming pleaded guilty. His matter was adjourned to next Tuesday for sentencing. These incidents were reported to police in the central and bonded areas. Certainly not the ending family members of that missing man were hoping for. Police reporting that the body of a black male was seen floating some 50 feet offshore in an area near Bailey Town. After 4 p.m. yesterday, the body was recovered. The victim confirmed as the man last seen sitting in a small boat anchored at the rear of a business last Wednesday. The body of the other man was found on Thursday. Authorities are now relying on an autopsy to determine the exact cause of death in both cases. A boost for religious tourism. An estimated 2,000 people to flock to the capital to attend a major international conference aimed at discussing ways to combat current social issues in the U.S. JCN's Amajal Knowles has the story.
The midwinter board meeting of the Progressive National Baptist Convention set to take place this week at the Malia Nassau Beach Resort, kicking off with its MLK Empowerment Award service tonight, and the address will be given by none other than renowned U.S. civil rights activist and former politician Reverend Jesse Jackson.
Dr. King led the struggle to break up that state around and a body of ministers broke away from the traditional Baptist and from the progressive convention to end of legal segregation. Dr. King himself was one of the co-founding members, his father of this convention. So it's a joy to be a part of this gathering of ministers who social change, not just social service. So thank you, Mr. President. Also now we know that all the reformers are under attack. Good news is we're not going to surrender. We're fighting back. We won significant races this past year. We're going to win again in 2018. Most of all, we are aware of what our options are. We're going to fight for that which matters.
President of the PNBC, Reverend James C. Perkins, citing the importance of churches in the early civil rights struggle and the need to act now.
The Progressive Convention is and was the spiritual and denominational of Dr. King, and our distinctive and uniqueness as Baptists is that we wed spirituality with social justice. Our mission is to equip pastors and churches to be effective in ministry and to lift our voice on behalf of the voiceless. We are here this week because of the political atmosphere that we are in at this present time with this present presidential administration. We're here to develop strategies on how we can continue to lift our voice and to protest this administration's setback of civil rights.
Now, as for why the Bahamas, well, leave it up to executives. They will say the weather, as this is the fourth such meeting held in the Bahamas, as the group has been coming since 1991. And if you leave it up to Bethel Baptist pastor Reverend Dr. Timothy Stewart, who also serves as first VP of the PNBC, the connection is much more.
Progressive deliberates this week. We are thankful to God for the relationship and the affiliation that we've shared with Progressive since 1991, and we thank God for how throughout the years we have been able to play a very meaningful and a very vital role in this great body.
The conference is expected to run until Thursday. For JCN News, I'm Amajal Knowles.
Our final stories are up next.
This segment of the news has been brought to you by Sun Oil Limited.